A showdown on Arizona's immigration law. Heading to the U.S. Supreme Court this week, the justices will have to decide whether the law interferes with the powers of the federal government by giving police too much power to pursue illegal immigrants. During an election year, the case carries big political stakes. Take a look at this brand new Fox News poll. In a brand new poll out, the immigration law has overwhelming support by a margin of more than 2 to 1. 65% supporting it, 31% do not. Let's bring in our legal panel, David Schwartz and Kisha Hebbon. Both are defense attorneys and former prosecutors. Good to see you both. Now, Kisha, the Obama administration argues here that, look, the state of Arizona is usurping federal authority because they're requiring, among other things, legal aliens to carry registration papers to prove who they are, and they're here illegally. But here's the thing. How could it be usurping federal law because that's already federal law?
Right, and Greg, that's one of the points that I wanted to make, is that yes, we do have the supremacy clause, which says that federal law is the authoritative law, but the federal law requires that already. And I think that what people are failing to realize is that this is more of an enforcement of the federal law and not so much of a expansion or doing more than what the federal law allows.
David, isn't Arizona simply enforcing existing federal law, but doing so at the state level? And you know the U.S. Supreme Court has said in many matters there is concurrent authority.
There sure is concurrent authority, and for sure the state can help enforce the federal laws that are already on the books. However, the state can't propose their own legislation. They can't enact their own laws to preempt the federal law.
What if it
we need
complements
one policy.
Federal law, doesn't conflict with federal law?
It absolutely does, because when you have such a comprehensive statute as the federal immigration statute is, it is within the sole discretion of the feds. The proper approach would have been to lobby Congress and to carve out certain areas that the state could enact.
You know, Kisha, the lower court said that having police check on the status of suspected illegals during a lawful stop, by the way, places an undue burden on the feds. Since when is enforcing federal law an undue burden?
Right, I disagree with that. And as you stated, if they're already lawfully detained, then the police have an obligation to check their status. That's part of the law. I do see a problem if there's no probable cause or they're not legally detained. And I think one of the issues with this Arizona law is that it has to be tailored a bit to make sure it's not racial profiling or it's not too intrusive.
David, this undue burden thing. Look, we have this new device called computers. And on average, to check the database on somebody's registration takes, on average, 81 minutes. That's not an undue burden, is it? 81 minutes.
No, look, it's not an undue burden. I think the bottom line here, though, Greg, is we can't run down this slippery slope of having each state enact their own immigration laws in this country. We need one policy in this country, one immigration set of laws, and that has to be done at the federal level.
But, David, the Supreme Court has said in past decisions that states may take some steps to increase the enforcement of federal immigration laws, and in fact, the 4th, 5th, 8th, 9th, and 10th Circuit Courts have upheld such state actions.
And you could do that without enacting legislation. Of course you could enforce the federal laws that are already on the books, that the state can work hand in hand in conjunction with the federal authorities to enforce federal law. You don't need your own laws.
I think to alleviate this issue, like David said, maybe there needs to be a lobby in Congress, because obviously if all these states are trying to enact their own laws with regard to immigration, there's a problem nationally, and maybe the federal law needs to be revamped or looked at again.
Look, Arizona's employer verification law back in 2007 was upheld as constitutional. How is this any different, really?
It's really not different. It's not. And I think the problem is, again, people are not looking at the federal law to say, okay, this is the exact same thing, but there's certain parts of this law that come off as intrusive or unconstitutional.
Yeah. Now, police are allowed to stop people on the street, not because they look Hispanic, but only if there's a lawful stop, for example, a traffic violation of some sort, or grabbing a suspected thief. Do you still worry, though, about racial profiling, David?
You always have to worry about racial profiling. So I mean, the bottom line is we have certain constitutional standards as to when you could stop someone, when you could arrest someone, and those laws, those standards have to apply to everybody equally. You can't carve out separations.
Let me read the Arizona Immigration Law Amendment to get rid of the racial profiling. A law enforcement official may not solely consider race, color, or national origin. A person is presumed not to be an alien who is unlawfully present. Does that get rid of the racial profiling element of this?
It's a slippery slope, because I still think if the law is not even more specific, you will have a few officers that will say, okay, this person looks of this descent, so maybe they're here illegally. So you have to be really careful.
Yeah. David, I want to ask you about the court itself. Elena Kagan, the newest member, is not going to be deciding this case because she was Solicitor General in the Obama administration, and she was involved in some of the litigation and crafting of this. So does that give the advantage to Arizona here, because you're going to have more conservatives than you will liberals?
Absolutely. It takes one vote away. Clearly, she would have voted with the Obama administration. She helped write these briefs. She had every reason to get herself out of hearing this case.
But you know what? I think there's going to be a mixed ruling. I don't think the law is going to be completely thrown out.
In other words, some of it will be ruled constitutional and others struck down.
Yes,
I think it'll all be struck down.
Really?
I disagree.
Okay. We'll wait and see. I'm with you, Kisha. I think it's going to be a mixed bag here. We'll wait and see. Kisha Hebbon, David Schwartz, good to see you both. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.